You're listening to KBC English Service.
This is the Best of Breakfast with Angela Mwihaki.
And it's time for our big conversation now. It is the desire of many adults, whether married or single, to have children for numerous reasons. But the dream of bearing a child has not become a reality for some. Now, in such cases, many people have turned to adoption. We, however, need to make it clear that there are couples or individuals who turn to adoption not because they are unable to bear children, but because they feel the need to give a child who would otherwise not know a home the opportunity to be part of a family. Now, whereas adoption cases are now common in Kenya, the process is usually described as tedious and sometimes even mysterious. On this show this morning, we set out to demystify the process of adoption and what the law in Kenya says about the same. And we are very happy to be joined in studio by our friend, legal and children's rights expert Danstan Omari. He's also a law lecturer at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. Good morning.
Morning to you, and welcome all Kenyans and foreigners who have an interest in children, and especially to understand the mystery of adoption.
Asante sana. Now, the last time we had a very good response to the conversation you and I had a fortnight ago when we were talking about the rights of children, you know, whether born out of wedlock or not. Yeah. And you said the fact that you have created a child, the child is entitled to everything under the law. It doesn't matter the situation behind it.
Very well.
And as a result, now other questions have come out, and that's why today we want to discuss adoption. So let's start with what usually happens in our communities. Could you first help us understand how would you define adoption? What is adoption? First
and foremost, children are born in three types of environment. Biologically, children are born in a biological union between a father and a mother. That one has no dispute about it. Secondly, we have children by virtue of association called acquiring parental responsibility. Either somebody has married a lady who has a child and he has claimed that he is the father of that child, and the mother has no problem. That one is there. The third one is called alternative family care, where children are born in courts of law. That is where we talk about guardianship, that's where we talk about adoption, and that's where we talk about foster care. So those three areas are known by law as the only way one can be called a parent of a child. So essentially, adoption is a legal process that is only conducted in the High Court of Kenya. It cannot be conducted in a magistrate's court. Yes. It is conducted in a High Court of Kenya, and the process starts first not at the High Court of Kenya. The first issue is that the child must be declared to be free to be adopted. That is a legal requirement that before a child is adopted, you have got to go to an adoption agency. An adoption agency is a private entity registered by government, so that that child is, the circumstances of that child are evaluated. One, is that child vulnerable? Two, is the child fit to be adopted? Three, is adoption the only option available for this child? Once the adoption agency declares that child that this child is now available to be adopted, that they will issue what is called a certificate of freeing that child.
Now, let's start with, you've talked about, is the child free?
Yes.
In what situation could a child not be free or fit for adoption?
For example, if a mother wants to sell her child. For example, if a father wants to sell her child. For example, the parents are able to take their child, but they are neglecting to take that child as a responsibility. So they are running away from the responsibilities. So vulnerability and acceptability of the child to be adopted is based on, one, this child's parents cannot be traced. For example, this is a child that was at birth was dumped somewhere. Two, this child is in a serious medical condition that there is no option. Three, the parents of this child are willing to allow that child to be adopted, and they will understand what an adoption means, because an adoption, the effect of adoption means that once a parent surrenders a child for adoption, that child ceases being the child of the biological parent and becomes the child of that parent who is adopting. And this biological parent can never whatever reasons, ever claim that child. So the parents must be told and understand the effect of adoption. So those are the children that qualify to be adopted.
So who do not qualify?
Children who do not qualify are a child who has both parents, 2, a child who has no problem, 3, a child who is taken care of very well, 4, a child who the parents want to purport that they don't want to take that child. So they must be forced. For example, Omari cannot give his child for adoption. I must convince the court, why really do I want to give that child for adoption? I'm a lawyer, a senior lawyer. I have resources to take care of that child.
So why are you putting up this child? So the circumstances of that adoption is there. And most of the children who are adopted are children whose parents are not known, whose relatives are not known, who cannot be placed in a family. They have no family. So adoption is creating a legal family in court. Excellent. Now, let's get close to what usually happens to us at home, huku nyumbani. So, there could be an incident where maybe I am taking care of my relative's children, either because maybe my relative is deceased or they may lack the financial ability. Maybe my cousin is in Gishagi and I'm taking care of this child. Can that be considered an adoption?
It is not an adoption. That is a foster care arrangement. When you take children without going to court by virtue that these children belong to your relatives, these children belong to other issues, that is an arrangement that is provided by law under the foster care. A local arrangement. For example, my children are going to school and they have gone to stay with my aunt in Mombasa. That is a foster care arrangement. My parent, you said your sister passes on, that child, the family says you'll stay with that child. That is without going to court. That is a foster care arrangement. 2, that can escalate up to what is called a guardianship. Guardianship is going to court and now convince the court that my sister passed on, these children have nobody to take care of, appoint me a guardian. Those children that are through guardianship, they don't stop being the children of the deceased parent. They still belong to the parents who are deceased. You have only the legal capacity to deal with them as a guardian. What a guardian means is that you'll provide and maintain those children in everything, but they are not your children. So that is a second arrangement called a guardian. So mostly people in the village do guardianship without having a legal court order, so that you are staying with the children of your deceased parents or your deceased relatives, but you have not gone to court. That is a quasi guardianship. But you are supposed to go to court and under section 1 or 2 get what is called a guardianship order. A guardianship order does not allow you to travel with those children out of this country. You cannot leave a country to another country with a guardianship order. Those children will remain here unless you have an adoption order. So that is the guardianship arrangement. I'll talk about adoption later.
Okay, now, just in that situation, you could have a situation like now, let's say, yes, maybe that relative in Geshagi, I have taken this child, and Aishi na mimi, it gets to a point where even this child is calling me mom. So how do we distinguish? I mean, now, this child knows this is mom, and we're saying I am a guard. So how do we work on that? From legally, there is that thing, but now here, tumekuwa hata unaitwa mami, unaitwa daddy. How does that work?
Practically,
so being called mommy, that doesn't make you a parent.
It is not legal.
Okay.
You will have acquired parental responsibility, but it's not legal. That child still remains the child of the biological parent, unless through adoption. Children can only cease to being children of biological parents through one process: adoption in the High Court. Any other arrangement is only for the language purposes. Hawa ni watoto wangu, hawa ni watoto wa mami. But legally, they are not your children. They are only your children as per the context of your environment and your community and your tribe. But legally, they are not your children. If you want them to be your children, adoption is the only legal means available for you.
Excellent. And of course, in studio, we are joined by Danstan Omari, who is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya. He is also a lecturer at the Catholic University of East Africa. And we're discussing matters adoption. who qualifies to adopt? At least he's explained to us the situations where a child can be adopted. So who qualifies to adopt? What are the age restrictions? Send in your thoughts, your opinions on 22162, beginning with the word breakfast. We are joined by Danstan Omari, who is a children's rights activist, well, a lawyer, an expert. Lawyer. You said you stand for them.
And lecturer for that provision of the law.
And he's also generally a law lecturer at the Catholic University of Eastern Africa. And we are discussing matters adoption. Now, let us look at what are some of the reasons or circumstances that lead people to seek adoption?
One, failure to have children, biological children, either medically or because of any other reason that occurs. So that is one ground. Two, your children die when you are already old and you have no children and you're suffering from what is called an empty nest syndrome. You have no children because your children passed away and you are not able to give your children. Third, you have enough resources and you really do not feel that those resources should go to waste. You adopt a child like Madonna to assist that child. Fourth, you might adopt a child because you do not want to give birth. Models, celebrities, and people, career people, especially women, have no time to that biological process because sometimes giving birth disfigures the figure of ladies. So they can opt to adopt to avoid that. And the career is so demanding, you are not available for 9 months to carry that pregnancy. So there are very many reasons as to why one can adopt. Lastly, you might adopt because you believe in assisting children. Your welfare, you have not that you have resources, but you feel that there are children on the streets who need to have a home. So the reasons as to why one can adopt are higher. Also medically, if for example somebody is HIV positive, they might opt to adopt instead of engaging in sex that is unprotected. So there are very many reasons as to why somebody will opt to have a child through the process of adoption.
Excellent. Now, what we have read so far and heard from people is they say it can be very tedious. Now, what are the requirements generally in adoption and what are the processes? Let's start with who can adopt and how.
The first one, the person who will adopt one, that person must be a person in a marriage. That's the first condition.
To adopt.
There are exceptions.
Yes.
I'll tell you the exceptions.
Okay,
the rule is one must be in a marriage.
Okay.
A spouse. Two people.
A husband and
a wife.
Yes.
Two, these people should not have any criminal record, especially criminology related to issues about children and sexual or related offenses. So they must have a certificate of good conduct. Three, these people, the person must be 21 years older than the child that they are adopting.
Not older, not years old. Older.
Older.
Fine.
Than the child they are adopting.
Okay.
I'll explain as to why. Then this person must not be a homosexual, a lesbian, or a bankrupt.
Okay.
Then also this person should not be over 65 years old. If you are above 65 years old, you cannot adopt. This person should not be 4. If it is a man adopting, he cannot be allowed to adopt a girl.
So these are the exceptions. Now, if you're not married, you can adopt if you're over again 21 years.
Yes.
If you're a lady.
Yes. For a man, you cannot be allowed to adopt a girl because you might turn that girl into your wife.
Right.
For a lady, you cannot be allowed to adopt a son, a man, or a male child because you are likely to turn that male person to be your husband. So those are the qualifications of who can adopt and who cannot adopt.
Okay.
Then also the child, which child can be adopted? That child must be at least 6 weeks old.
6 weeks.
You cannot adopt a child who is 5 weeks old. The process starts when that child is at least 6 weeks old. So that is the child who can
be adopted.
Under special circumstances, a foreigner who is a sole male foreigner or a sole female foreigner can be allowed to adopt under special circumstances, that person must explain to the court why she's not married or why he's not married and he's a foreigner, he wants a child. So those are the conditions of who can qualify to adopt and which child qualifies to be adopted.
And for the foreigner, the same rules apply.
The same rules apply.
21 years older, and if you're a man, you can only adopt a boy.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what are the stages? Let's say we have decided we're going to adopt. What are the stages? How does this process begin? I am looking for a baby. I don't even know where to get the baby.
There are 5 stages.
Okay.
The first stage is to take this child and the person applying to an adoption agency. This is a private entity registered by government to verify and look at the circumstances of this child, and if that entity is satisfied that the child is free and fit and qualifies to be adopted, then that they will issue a certificate of freeing that child. 2, they will interview the person who wants to adopt this child or the couple that wants to adopt this child and find that these people are not criminals, these people are not thugs, these people are good, they have an environment to stay with this child, they are fit to adopt. That is stage 1.
Okay, let me take you a bit behind. For the people who have thought about it and don't know. For example, I want a child, but I don't know where to go.
Yeah.
So if I want a baby, where do I go? I mean, I cannot go to the hospital. You said we cannot get children there. So where would I get a child?
There are already 5 adoption agencies that have children in their place for adoption.
Okay.
Child Welfare Society is one of them. It has branches the whole country, where in most former provincial headquarters. Little Angels is another one that is there. Dr. Bernardo's is another one that is there. And there are around 5 adoption agencies.
So if I go to an adoption agency and say I would like to adopt.
The first thing is you go to an adoption agency.
Excellent.
If you have no child you want to adopt.
Yes.
There are 2 options. You either go to an adoption agency or work with a child who you have identified to that adoption agency and say, this is the child, kindly do your investigative report and allow me to adopt this child.
Excellent.
2 ways.
Okay.
Yes.
So now let's move on. So now, yes, we have identified the child. Then this process, now the agency is to verify.
The agency has cleared the person to adopt. The agency has cleared the child to be adopted. Then this thing now lands at a lawyer's office, an adoption lawyer.
Right.
So the agency, you'll tell the agency that my lawyer will be Danstan Omari of Musyoki Mwihaki and Company Advocates to do this adoption. Once the documents land at the lawyer's office, the lawyer makes an application to the High Court asking for 2 things. One, that the child, the director children's services, commonly in the village called the children's officer, do an investigation, further investigation than what the adoption agency did. 2, that the court appoints a person called a guardian ad litem. A guardian ad litem is a social worker who is supposed to stand for the interest of that child. These are people known by court that they will do a good job. These are people who are supposed to protect the interest of the child. Then once that application is done, the court will appoint a guardian ad litem. The court will order the director of children's services to do an investigation report. Then once these people have been ordered, they will do concurrent reports. Remember, the adoption agency did their report.
Yes.
The guardian ad litem will do their report, the investigation, and the director of children's services, who is a government person, will do their report. Then the 3 reports come to court, either approving for this person to adopt or rejecting this person to adopt.
Now, when these reports are being done, do I have custody of the child? Like, if it is a child from a children's home or from adoption agency, do I have the child or the child remains there? You
will be having this child. One of the issues that the courts want to know is that you have stayed with this child continuously for 3 months.
Okay.
What is called bonding. If you have not been staying with this child for 3 months, then you do not qualify to adopt. The reason being that the social worker, the guardian ad litem, the adoption agency will want to see the body chemistry between the adoptive parents and the child. Are these people living as father, as mother, and the child? That is very critical for adoption. So if the social workers will come home, see you, They will come to church, see you with these children in church. They will come to the shopping mall to see how you behave. So they want to know whether the family setup is like a real family of children living in a family. So that are the issues that they look at.
Now let me take you back a little bit. So if I go to the children's home, we understand that they do something called matching and placement.
Yes.
I remember someone explaining they want to make sure that the child looks like they belong to you.
Yes.
So you know, in terms of how they look at and maybe even the IQ of the child. Now, some children's organizations have said that this matching thing is very discriminatory to the child, because in natural circumstances, if you have a baby the natural way, there's no matching. The child will come as it is, whether it has a condition or not, the baby is yours.
There's normally matching because the genes are almost half between a biological mother and a biological father.
Yes.
So in matching, for example, I'm a Kisi.
Yes.
I go to an adoption agency. When they don't do the matching, they give me a Chinese child. Then after this child grows, the child does not look like me. That child will be discriminated.
Yes.
So they will want to know your tribe. They will want to know your preferences, so that within that child they are giving you, if that child was found around Kisi, then that child fits the characteristics and the tempers and the issues of the Merus and all those things. That is the reason for matching. They will also be looking at the genetic makeup of this child in terms of medical care. For example, there are children who have sickle care problems. They have children who are autistic.
Yes.
So they'll be looking at who this person is and give that child to somebody who is nearer. You are a guy who is a pygmy, like a Congolese of 1 feet above. Then they are giving you a child who was found within giants. So really they will want to get something nearer, something at least nearer to you. Are you getting the point?
Yes, I do.
That is why matching is there.
Okay, so that is why it is important, and that makes a lot of sense. Let me now. Okay, I think I'm seeing a question, but I'm seeing it's we will get back to it because it's not we are not even there yet, but already the questions are coming in. But let's move on. Now, we've talked about this issue of men only adopting boys, girls can only adopt, ladies can only adopt girls, and there's a question here. People are like, sometimes your husband passes away, you have a son, so I will bring him up, So why is there that bias? Or a man, his wife dies and he has daughters, he will bring them up.
There is I'm going to talk about types of adoption. There is what is called kinship adoption. Within the family, you can adopt even if you are a lady, because you are an aunt to this child.
Yes.
You can never engage yourself on sexual engagement. That is a kinship adoption within the blood relationship. When it has nothing like blood relationship, the courts look at it that there is a possibility of you admiring this child or feeling a sexual urge towards that child. So it must protect that child.
So it is protection. That is the reason why this happens.
Yes.
Now, maybe this rule, just other than protection, could that be the reason why maybe more baby girls are adopted, in terms of that women are more, the likelihood of a person going for adoption would be a woman, even a single woman, compared to single men going for adoption? The
majority of women are the ones who barrenness is obvious and they cannot hide it.
Okay.
Married couples, if a woman does not have a child, then she feels that she doesn't have a relationship. Men can stay without being known that they do not have children. The wife will walk out, and that was usually arrangement within the society. She will get children, but these children will be called Omari's children, but they are not Omari's biological children. But if the lady does not have that child, how will she hide that barrenness? So that's the reason as to why very many daughters are being adopted, and very many of the applicants for adoption are women. Yes.
Okay, that definitely works. Now, what happens to foreigners? Because we understand that a case was filed and foreign adoptions were put on hold for a while. When foreigners come here, can they also get a baby after 6 weeks? What is the procedure for a foreign adoption? For
now, there is no law allowing foreign adoption. A foreigner is anybody who is not a Kenyan. It is part of the law as it is, but Cabinet sat down, the Cabinet of Kenya, and made it clear that a moratorium was issued, stopping any foreigner from adopting a child. And this is not a Kenyan issue, it's a global issue. The world is moving into the issue that let citizens adopt children who are citizens. Let families adopt children from the family. Why is a foreigner coming to adopt here and there are very many children in Britain she can adopt? So the question of racial discrimination, the question of how does a country follow to ensure that that child is safe. So globally the movement now is saying if you are an Ethiopian, you have children in Ethiopia to adopt. If you are a Malawian, there are children in Malawi to adopt. So if you are a Kenyan, adopt your children. We have so many here on the streets. We have so many in the children's homes. So that is the position of now. There is a case in court, I don't want to discuss about it, challenging the legality of the cabinet decision. Once the court pronounces itself on that matter, I'll be able to advise Kenyans what the courts have said.
Excellent. Now I have a question here. Let's see. This is Richard from Kisumu. He says, Jambo Angela, is an adoption agreement revocable or does it have an exit clause? He says, my mother adopted a baby boy after not getting one out of her many girls. He came at the age of 6 and is 23 years old now. He has become a bad boy involved in crime and substance abuse.
Let us finish the adoption process.
Then we shall get into that. Yeah, but
so once I'll answer that. Once the courts have the Director of Children's Services and the Guardian ad litem files a report, the court will decide to give this child an adoption order.
Yes.
What does the adoption order mean? The adoption order means that the child's parents' rights are extinguished and a new father, a new mother has given birth in the courtroom.
In the court, yes.
Not in the maternity ward. So the courts now become a maternity ward. They become a pumwani. So that child now has a new father, has a new mother. What does that mean? The effect of adoption, it can never be reversed.
Bas, excellent.
It is permanent, forever. The only ground for reversal of an adoption order is if there was a mistake or misrepresentation at the time of the hearing, or fraud was occasioned. But if adoption processes went all through, that child
till death do you part.
It is till death. The reasoning is that you have given birth. When your child becomes a thief, do you return that child to Aga Khan hospital?
No.
When your child becomes a murderer, do you disown that child and take that child to Bumwani hospital? That is your child till death, and not even till death. Even after death,
still your child,
we are carrying our father's names. Even when our fathers died long time ago, it is for eternity. That is your child.
So Richard, there goes your answer. Your shosho has no choice. Mtoto ni wake.
Mtoto ni wake. Kama alifanya adoption, atalea mtoto wake, awe ni mwizi, awe ni mfupi, awe ni Chinese, awe hana nini. That is why, that is the reason why adoption is so tedious, because the consequences are you can never run away from it.
Excellent. And of course, if you're just joining us, we have with us a legal and children rights expert, Danstan Omari. He's also a law lecturer at the Catholic University of East Africa. We are discussing matters adoption. Now, 2 weeks ago, we talked about the right of children and, children and their rights to have their father's names on their birth certificates. Now, what happens at adoption? Do we change the child's birth certificate, or what happens? Can I now be called the mother of this child? What happens there?
Previously, these children were given what is called a certificate of adoption. People went to court challenging, because you can imagine, you take your child to school, everybody has a red birth, pink, is it maroon pink birth certificate, everybody knows it. Then your child has a white birth certificate called an adoption certificate. Then people say, hey, this one was bought.
And maybe the child did not even know.
The child doesn't understand.
Yes.
So the court, that matter appeared before Justice Lenaula, and Justice Lenaula declared that that is discrimination. So from that time, nowadays, after a child has been adopted, one is given an ordinary birth certificate like the one every Kenyan has. So now there is no discrimination. There are children, because you have given birth in court, the others gave birth in the village or in hospital. So both of you have given birth. So each child nowadays is given a birth certificate, except at the Attorney General's office, there is a register of children that have been adopted, but the document that they issued is a birth certificate, an ordinary birth certificate.
So even if I get a child who already had a previous birth certificate, they will change?
It will be revoked, and legally the birth certificate will come out with the new parents as the biological parents, not as adoptive parents, as biological parents.
So that will be next of kin, father's name, mother's name.
Everything is the same, and that child must be granted every benefit a child born in a marriage gets. There's another issue. Before foreign adoption was granted, the country where the foreigners were coming, that country must accept that if this child is being adopted from Kenya, they will give citizenship to that child, they will allow that child to vote, they will give birth certificates there. So that is a condition before a court in Kenya.
Universal.
It is universal that the country where you are going, and I'm addressing the ladies in this country, when you are adopting a child with a foreigner, make sure that the country of that foreigner must commit itself that once adoption is over, that child is going to be a citizen of that country.
So do you need to get documentation, or how does that work? So that,
like the Director of Children's Services Kenya here is a department worldwide of children department. So the Director of Children's Services in whichever country you want to adopt from, and through the High Court there, must give a consent without any condition that once that child is adopted, then they will grant citizenship to that.
So do you need to do that before you come and adopt?
Yes, that is the first thing the court will ask. You are a foreigner, give us a consent from your country that they will agree to this child.
Now, let me take you back to those who have gone to the children's home to look for a baby. They have done the matching. How soon, so we have said this is a baby available, how soon do they allow you to juana?
They will be reluctant. It is circumstantial. There is no timelines. They will be looking at who you are and what the child is and whether you have an interest. They might do matching for 10 years. They are simply telling you they are not satisfied with you.
But if you have done matching, how soon would they allow? I first go visit the baby. When will they tell me, okay, Angela, go and stay with the baby for a week or 2 weeks?
The boarding. How fast does the chemistry between you and the child develop? You sit in a matatu, and from here to Mombasa you're in a bus, and a lady is seated next to you, or a man is seated next to you, and you have nothing in common to talk. Hello madam, hello sir. You have no body chemistry. You sit with somebody for 3 minutes and the body chemistry allows. So that is about the children. How fast does the child become free with you, and how do you gel? So that is why matching is not time specific. It is individual and child individual specific.
So that's why you were saying even within 6 weeks I could have a baby.
You can have
in my house,
in your house. Home. It all depends
on how soon we relate to each other,
and how the adoption agency is satisfied that now this child is in a proper place.
Now this is a tricky question. Can you decide you do not want to adopt in the middle of the process? Can you change your mind?
Yes, you can always change your mind. And that is why there is always a guardian ad litem. There are two options. The court can reject.
Yes.
The guardian ad litem must now look for how to deal with this child now that the court has rejected. Two, somebody has changed his or her mind. Remember, in law, it is known that it is only a dead person who does not change their mind. So, emotional issues, you can change your mind. So, you are only not allowed to change your mind once an adoption order has been issued. But so long as you have not changed your mind, the process will go.
Okay, now what about, can the parent who's supposed to surrender their rights, can they change their mind?
Very many have changed their mind.
Yes.
Because for example, I know very many parents who say, my sister, you are now in the US, adopt this child, with a view of the child going to get education in the US. So when they go to court and the reality is explained to them that this child ceases being your child now forever, mama anakuambia, mimi, you see, I was giving you my daughter, mtoto bado ni wangu. I withdraw my consent. So that is why at every stage there are provisions for withdrawal until the stage ends. Even in divorce, when we do divorce in court, the first stage, once the court gives divorce, it gives divorce in nisi. Then divorce in nisi means you have been temporarily divorced for 6 months. Go and think. If you change your mind, come back and say, I have considered my position, either I will stand for the divorce or I've changed my mind, we have reconciled. Once 6 months elapse, then a divorce absolute is given permanently. Adoption is the same. The stages are to make sure that people, because very many of them go to court without having the proper information, they are properly advised before they make that decision. It's a serious decision to leave your child to be adopted.
So now, of course, you mentioned casually, you did mention earlier that there was a case in court disputing how the cabinet froze the indefinite inter-country adoption, and that was because UN report cited us as a source of transit and destination country for human trafficking.
Yes.
What other measures are there? Do you first agree that was true, and what other measures are there to protect children from this horrible menace?
There are protocols and conventions, international treaties, international convention that have been signed by Kenya under section 3, subsection 6. Those treaties form part of the Kenyan law. The treaties are the Hague Protocols on adoption and the optional protocols that deal with adoption. One of the issue, there's a very thin line between child trafficking and adoption. Very many people use adoption, a legal process, to traffic children. What do I mean by trafficking children? They are selling of children. There is a selling of human beings. Kenyans know that very many of our daughters are going to Arab countries purely to work, but in essence they are sex slaves when they arrive there. That is human trafficking. For children, people come and adopt children falsely that they are going to assist these children. When these children reach in those Western countries, one, these children are exposed to child sex exploitation. The smaller the child, the higher the person who wants to engage sex with that child pays. Such sexes are, for example, lesbianism, pedophilia, or homosexuality, all those issues. So people make huge amounts of money from those children that have been adopted. Two, children provide spare parts. For example, the hearts, the kidneys, the liver, these are spare parts that are not readily available. So these children, when they are adopted from here, they go there. They are killed, they are removed, those spare parts, they are kept in fridges. For patients who are rich, when they are sick, they are put into those organs. So that is the reason for child trafficking. Free children can be trafficked to countries so that they are made into sex slaves for the soldiers when they are fighting, or these children become the prostitutes for soldiers, or these children also are recruited. Forced recruitment into the army, militias. So the world is now fighting to protect children. Kenya was cited as one of the biggest countries of children being trafficked outside of Kenya by virtue of adoption. The essence and the veracity of that finding is yet to be determined. But globally, child trafficking is a threat, and that is why people are saying adopt children from within. Locally.
Okay. Now, out there in the States and in first world countries, we now hear about people looking for the children they give up for adoption. What would happen in Kenya if I give up a child maybe 10-15 years ago? Can I find them? Can we link?
It is also an issue, as I've said, the empty nest syndrome. A mother, let me tell you, until a mother sees the grave of her child, forever that mother will always be having the bond towards that child. So whether that child has been adopted, people follow that. Is another concept, is another challenge. Now we have a serious emerging issue of surrogacy, where somebody pays a mother to get to carry a pregnancy and deliver that child after being paid. So the question is, in Kenya now, the court has ordered the Attorney General within 6 months to make a law for surrogacy. So the question is, the issue there is ethical. The issue there is moral. The issue there is biblical. Can one surrender her own child? Is it biblical? Is it Quranic? So that is the issue. So people are tracing their children. Especially,
so legally, can I
legally you can't.
Okay.
That is why the law is saying legally it is irreversible.
Okay.
But ethically, how do you stop a mother who has traced their own blood? Barack Obama, the former president of the USA, had to come back here to look for the roots. Everybody wants to know their identity. people want to know who their biological father is, regardless whether he's a mkokoteni pusher. So you want to know who really is my biological father. So that is a very serious issue that now adoption is facing. Another issue, you'll be surprised that in court here, leave alone adoption, you will find a child who a mother and father had a relationship when they were in school and went away, or the father refused to be associated with that child. That child tops the Matiang exam and comes to number 1. Then 10 parents, then fathers are coming, this is my child, this is my child. We are going to an election of 2017. Who knows, if Raila Odinga wins, a father will come and say, this is my child. So that is the position. If an MCA wins, you will find people coming up and wanting to associate themselves with success. So those are the challenges of adoption and surrogacy. So that is the reason why adoption seems to be dying slowly. And people are encouraging adoption within the family, what is called kinship adoption, blood adoption.
What the final question is, so is there a law that requires a parent to tell a child they are adopted? You know, some people do not tell and then you discover later. Or what is the recommendation here? How soon should your child know that they were adopted?
The question of adoption is very clear, that this child is not supposed to know that they were adopted.
Or they should not know.
That is what the law talks about, and that is why children who are adopted are very young. Before they develop a link with their biological parents, this child is very young. But who said that the community, the relatives
will not
who know that they have never seen Wanjiku carrying a pregnancy, all of a sudden they see her with a child, they will not tell the child one day that you ulinunuliwa. Those are the ethical questions that are there. Do these children end up knowing that they are adopted? Yes. How do they react? Some of them become very violent. Records are very clear of children who came to discover that they were adopted, and they decided to kill, to murder the parent who adopted them. So it is not very clear how children react to when they come to know that they were hidden from this story. You know very well, even today there are children who ask their mothers, who is my daddy? Then they are told, your daddy died. Later, when the child goes to secondary school, the father knows that the child is at Alliance High School. He appears and he says, I'm your father. When the child looks at the mirror, he says, yes, you look like me. How do that child deal with their mother who lied them and told them that their father was crushed by a train? So those are the ethical questions that are surround non-disclosure to a child of his identity. Identity is so critical to every human being.
Thank you very much. That is Danstan Omari. He is an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and a lecturer at Catholic University. We have just touched the tip of the iceberg. He will be back. We will be discussing definitely. Surrogacy is the next thing we're going to discuss. Is it buying children? How does it work? Whose rights? We've had cases in court with the government, with the registrar refusing to register the children in the birth mother, in the biological mother's name. These are big things. We shall definitely get into them next time.
That was the Best of Breakfast with me, Angela Mwihaki. Remember to follow us on Facebook at KBC English Service. On YouTube, look for the KBC English Service channel. And on Twitter, we're at KBC English Service, and I'm at Angela Mwihaki.
Your national radio, KBC English Service.